Thank you to our generous sponsor, Lavender. Lavender is an online psychiatry and therapy office brought together by two nurses on a mission to help increase access to mental health care. Their group of psychiatric nurse practitioners is creating a space where feelings are felt, respected, and cared for. Learn more at joinlavender.com. Welcome to Season 5 of the Color of Success podcast, where we talk with guests from AAPI and ethnic minority communities and have real discussions about mental health and what success looks like. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J Wong. Before we get into it, remember to subscribe to our mailing list for free at colorsuccesspodcast.com so you don't miss any updates. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. Elenor Mak is founder and CEO of Jilly Bing, the first toy company to create dolls and characters that resemble Asian American children. While searching for her daughter's first doll, she was appalled at the options. Rather than accept the status quo, Elenor did what she has done her entire career. She created something from nothing. Before Jilly Bing, Elenor co-founded Heaton Roe, an e-commerce fashion company. She next led the go-to market strategy for Target's Entrepreneur in Residence team. In 2017, Elenor joined the venture-backed startup Madison Reed. Under Eleanor's leadership, Madison Reed opened its flagship locations on the East and West Coasts. Elenor received her MBA from Harvard Business School and graduated from Dartmouth College with a major in economics. She lives in San Francisco with Richard, her husband, and their two young children, James and Jillian, who probably believe they have a third sibling named Jilly Bing. So Elenor, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. We're here to talk about your doll and I guess your daughter's doll. And I'm wondering, what do you think is the relationship between representation and mental health?
Yeah, I think representation, I think we talk about how it matters, right? And I think obviously it does. I think another way that I've thought about this is let's think about when you don't have representation, right? So imagine you're a young child walking into the toy aisles of one of these major retailers, and you see
Yes.
rows and rows of dolls, right, that look nothing like you. Right? What happens to the child at that moment in time, right? What does that signal to our children about their belonging, their beauty, the way they look, right? And I would argue in that case, the damage has been done, right? When the child can't see themselves in what is considered a normal, sort of the normalcy of these toy aisles. So, I think that's why for us, embarking on this journey was about creating a doll that looks like us, but it's also a lot more than just having a doll that looks like us.
Absolutely. I mean, you start to internalize those feelings of, well, maybe I should identify with the dolls that don't look like me in the store, right? And so I think there's this process of, are we accepting the messages that we're seeing in the toy stores and we're seeing in
Right.
the media? So I think it does have an impact. There's also, I mentioned to Dave Liu, who had been on the show, and he already told me about the exciting things about the doll. So it's just like our worlds have collided. Yeah, about that study in the past of like when children are asked to pick which they prefer between a white doll and a black doll, they
Yeah.
choose the white doll, even black children. So how would it have been different if you grew up with a doll that looked like us?
Yeah, that's a great question, Stephanie. Let me share with you, I think, some of the things we've heard from our customers, right? So we've obviously had parents buy this for their children. We've had grandparents, aunts, uncles. We've also had women, adult women,
Oh yeah.
moms, non-moms, like tell us like time and time again, this is the doll I wished I had growing up.
Mhm.
Right. Finally, we're seeing. And actually, I pulled this up for our conversation today because someone wrote in this message to us. We get, one of the things I love most about what we do is just the sort of getting these love messages, right, from parents and just about kind of what this means to them. But this mom said, I grew up looking at all the Barbies and dolls at the store, and none of them looked like me. It always left me with this feeling that there was something wrong with me, left me longing to have blonde hair and big round blue eyes.
Mhm.
Thank you for embarking on this. Thank you for creating Jilly Bing. Thank you for filling this gap from the little girl in me 40 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So, I can't answer what would have been like to have that doll, but I can also tell you that adult women still remember not having this doll.
Oh,
They've got,
absolutely. And so I think that there's this aspect of let's not make it rare, right? So
yeah.
thinking about that, because this is something that's sparking something in our community. What messages are you hoping to communicate to your children and to the children that are growing up right now?
Yeah, I think there's two areas that I think about impact, right? One is the one we talked about. It's being seen, right? For us to tell our children, you are beautiful as you are. One of the areas, for example, we spent a lot of time on was the doll's eyes.
Yes.
Because growing up, I'm 43, so growing up in the 80s, that's what I was made fun of, right? Like the slanty eyes, the ching chong eyes. So we embrace our doll's slanted eyes. We want it to be beautiful. So we want our children to know that their eyes, their black hair, they're beautiful as they are. And
So
then the
how
other,
did you go through that process though, if we could dig into that a little bit, because I imagine that there are also people who put some comments about how things should look or how it should
yeah.
be different. So how did you go through that testing where you made sure that you were staying true to your vision and obviously reflective of your own children?
Yeah, let me start by saying this is we're embarking on a lofty vision here, right? To create dolls that represent the diversity of Asian Americans today. And when we think about this is our first doll.
Hmm.
I want to be able to create a doll that represents every ethnicity under the sort of the massive Asian American umbrella, right? That's
Yeah.
what we want to do, but this is our first product. So with that in mind, I did not want to compromise and dilute it, right, by trying to do a one size fits all. So, we really said, okay, this doll, these are the family and friends we're talking to, right? These are the things that matter to the parents. These are what motivates mothers and fathers when it comes to representation, right? So what we heard was obviously the features, but then more than that, and this is why, we always say Jilly's more than a doll. She represents who we want our children to be. So what I mean by that is I think for too long, Asian American females in particular have been told who we're supposed to be. You're demure, right? You're dainty, you're this math nerd, right? And for us, it was really just creating a doll that had some energy and feist to her. So Jilly the doll, everything from her backstory to her positioning to like the accessories she comes with, she's just this energetic and feisty and somewhat bossy little girl that loves to eat, loves to tinker in the kitchen with her grandma, and she's just as quick to have a food fight with you as she is to cuddle with you, right? And that is really the spirit of, I would say all children, right? But a spirit of Asian American children that I think really has not been brought out in the past. So we just really stay focused on, I think, here's what we want the doll to represent. Here's what's important. Here's the stereotypes we want to break down, right? And then also staying true that, this is our first doll. I am not going to try to create one doll that really represents all of Asian Americans, because I think that's where you end up having, these sort of ambiguously looking Asian dolls in the toy aisles, because they're supposed to represent everyone and everything.
That's a great point. So I know that you're already a very well-connected woman and you come from a huge, a very extensive, impressive career. But when you enter the toy industry, you have said in multiple interviews, you had zero contacts in that particular industry. So
Yeah.
can you tell us more about how you started building your network and eventually get a team that has a similar vision and is on board with this vision?
Yeah, it's yes, I am grateful for the community and the networks and the education I have had. Getting into the toy industry was probably one of the toughest ones. Like when I looked at my MBA network, there was just such a small group of folks who had been in the toy space, right? And in addition to trying to find someone in the toy space, I needed someone on the creative side, of which I had zero background. Like as I've mentioned, I remember Googling like how do you make a doll and just watching videos.
Right.
One of my superpowers is the ability to find really good people to like network, and I will go down rabbit holes. I will talk to anyone and I will be able to connect the dots. But it wasn't easy. So the journey at first was just really finding toy designers, traditional toy designers, and really getting the same thing. Like the drawings we got were just like really bad drawings of dolls that looked like what was on the market, but they just had really like poorly done Asian eyes.
Right.
And it felt, I remember there were weeks where I was like, I don't think this is going to work, right? Because while I had this vision, I cannot bring this to life. I can't find the people who have the skills to bring this to life. But lo and behold, I just continue to talk to folks, and the team that we finally brought together, that I think that is the secret sauce of Jilly Bing. We have a team of 3 generations of this Asian American toy designer family based in LA, who have really just welcomed me into the world of dolls and toys. They've had experiences in Mattel, Kenner, a lot of the big brands, but they also understand, the uniqueness, the nuances of how do you create an Asian character. And even after I found them, as well as our creative director, who really ultimately designed the doll's face, they didn't buy into it right away, right? They all had full-time jobs, or I was this nobody with no toy background, with no, I didn't have a big, financial wallet. And so it was just really spending a lot of time talking to these folks, getting their advice, kind of building out that vision with them, right? Because at first, all I wanted was a doll for my daughter. It wasn't this, I just wanted a doll for my daughter. That really was.
Yeah, most people are like, I'm not gonna make a whole collection or like mass produce these things.
No.
Exactly. Like, and I think I told you I had one doll that looked like my daughter's, and it was from a Vietnamese woman who's a family friend, and gave it to us. And that was the only doll. We still have it to this day. Oh boy, they cut her hair up. So I'll send you the picture. But it was like pretty preppy. I did a little research before the interview yesterday, and you can't buy it here. Like, you can buy it, in Japan or something like that. But it's like a doll that's like 10 plus years old. So it's probably pretty hard to find. But I mean, really, there weren't many options. And, you Google the dolls and things like that, even back then, and there just wasn't anything.
Yeah, it's shocking, right? I think for me, I hadn't looked at dolls for however many decades, right? But last year when Jillian, my little girl, when she turned, it was 2.5, and she wanted a doll, I just figured I would walk into the stores. I live in San Francisco. It's the year 2022. I just assumed I would find a decent looking doll that looked somewhat like her. And I was shocked, right? I almost could not believe. I went to multiple stores because it was just sort of this disbelief that I couldn't find a single doll that I thought looked remotely like any Asian child I know. And I think out of that disappointment became anger, and then became sadness. You went through multiple phases, right? But as we kind of dug deeper, it was, yes, we want to get this doll out, right? That it's really still staying true to that. But as we talk to more parents, it's a desire of representation, right? But it's really bigger than that. It's also just this desire to make sure our kids are proud of who they are, right? They understand their culture, they understand their heritage, in a way that's sort of fun. And that's what we want to do at Jilly Bing. We want to create characters that, showcase Asian American cultures in just fun and joyful ways.
Absolutely. And I love the Don Tot, or the egg tart on the on the clothes. And so I think those little details are just so important and make it really, really cute and fun. And a lot of us can really relate to that, because one of my favorite Chinese pastries, right? And so there's this aspect of you are infusing culture into this doll. So, let's go back to the networking piece, because it's really scary to put yourself out there, even though you do have contacts in other areas. Because like you said, people pretty much took a risk on you to talk. But how did you build those relationships and really find the courage to put yourself out there like that?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of building those relationships, it always just starts with and I think I have been blessed, right? I think a lot of folks are willing to sort of pay it forward, pay it backward, right? I think, most of these folks were Asian Americans. So I think the desire to support a sort of fellow Asian American. But I also, actually I think of a lot of our kind of core communities, right? What I call my team, no one's full-time except me. Some of them are not Asian, but I think they can relate to the struggles that we're talking about, right? They feel this, so they feel they can, it's about kind of creating that pain point and helping them understand, right? So there are folks who are going to understand your vision right away, right? I've been there. I've wanted a doll for myself, for my daughter. And then there are folks, right? I think of one of my good friends, Nora, she's Irish, right? So she's always had dolls that look like her, but be able to kind of bring her on this journey, right? Bring her on this journey as a mom, wanting a doll that looks like your child and showing her all the cartoons and stereotypes that are out there and asking her, like, do you think this looks like an Asian child, right? I think being able to sort of like really kind of bring people on that vision or that you have, right? Helping them understand the pain point, painting the story for them. Then it just becomes, a lot of conversations, right? I think the folks who are now really kind of vested in the company, I don't think one of them jumped right away and said, I want to spend, my late nights and weekends working with you, right? It didn't start out that way. It was a slow building of, and especially in this early stage for us, right? It was, kind of, valuing not only kind of their functional skills, but also what they brought beyond that, right? So the ideas that they have beyond, hey, I can create this doll for you, or I can find you your manufacturing partner.
Right. And I think that's so important because what you're talking about is having conversations with people that seemingly don't look like us, but still have that same core value of wanting our children to have dolls and have, representation, because it sounds like, Nora is a lot more in tune with some of these DEI values, right? Of really kind of seeing your point of view or seeing Jillian's point of view. How do you even initiate these conversations with parents that aren't necessarily Asian American and on board, right away with this vision?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? I think right now, sort of our early adopters, right, are, the majority are folks with Asian American descent or children. Then we also, we do have orders that go to families without an Asian child. What I've heard from them is, yeah, I want my kid to have a doll that looks like her friends.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that is really, we're at this point in time where that type of sentiment is not limited to New York, San Francisco, right? I can see from our orders, I see our orders going to like Chattanooga or,
Yeah.
and I'm always like, oh, I'm just curious, right? And I would reach out to those families and I'm hearing that type of, sort of mindset, right? And it's wonderful to know that other folks want to support this because they think the doll is beautiful. They want their kids to be exposed to diversity, right? One of the themes we heard in our, the research that we did at Jilly Bing was that, more and more parents want to raise global citizens, right? And whether that includes an Asian American doll or not, like, I think it's part of that conversation, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
child having dolls that look like your friends. So, that's
It's
what we're
beautiful.
focusing on, right? People who, to your point, like Nora, who look nothing like us, but she will make you cry when she tells you about Jelly Bing, right?
She's a storyteller, and
Yes.
that's amazing. And you know, it's so interesting. You're right, because this podcast started very much with Asian AAPI communities, and it's
Mhm.
really expanded to a whole bunch of communities and ethnicities. And one of the top states that listen is Ohio. And so it's just like it's always very
So,
interesting, yeah, to like see who is people are hungry for the content, for dolls, for media, and you are filling such an important gap. So thinking about Jilly Bing, we talked about it. You're not trying to make a doll that represents all Asian Americans, which I think is very reasonable, people. We're not trying to like speak for all of Asian Americans. And there's so many differences within this group or umbrella that people kind of put on our communities. So what is next for Jilly Bing though? What would you want to do in an ideal world as kind of the next step?
so if I were to dream and I had, all the resources, all the time
Sure.
we would build out these characters right, that represent every ethnicity. We want a Blasian, half black, half Asian. We want Hapa, we want a boy, we want Vietnamese, we want Cambodian, like to build out all these characters, and that they exist, right? We have cartoons with them, right? They can tell stories, they can showcase their cultures, and we give these characters like real life personas, not the math nerds, not the whatever,
Right.
demure, right? Like real personalities, and we have these dolls, right? We have this line of dolls that, every child can look and be like, I can relate to this one, I can relate to that one. And it's a group of Asian American dolls that are at the center of the story. Like, we're not the sidekicks, right? We're not the white girl's best friend. We're not the afterthought on the aisle. We're not just that ethnic check the box. Like, it is just this world of Jilly Bing characters. I would love to have a cafe with these characters, like really fun. You have
That's
like
so
fun
cute.
foods like egg tarts, ube tarts, red beans, like all the nostalgic childhood foods that we grew up with that are not quite mainstream yet, right? But being able to welcome people, right? Asians and non-Asians into this world of Jilly Bing through all these really fun entry points, right? Cafes, cartoons, books. I could go on and on, but
No,
that's
you have my buy-in. Like it was like cafes because we were just talking off camera about Japan and I was like, that's a thing, right? It's all themed cafes with little puppies and hedgehogs and ferrets and why not? Why not?
Why
So
not have a Jilly Bean Cafe in Ohio, right? So for the folks who may not have
exactly.
experienced like some of our stinky foods, like we introduce and welcome them into it.
Exactly. And one of the last questions that I had as well before you tell us all the fun marketing details is how do you harmonize? I use the word harmonize because I don't believe at this point in my life of work-life balance. It's so difficult to truly strike a balance, but how do you harmonize work and life because you're a busy mother of two, building a company, trying to network, having your own dreams that are obviously fueled by your children. But how do you do that?
Yeah, anyone who says they get it all done, I want to know who they are.
Bullshit.
Yeah. I don't want to say that word, but
Oh, that's fine. I said it.
yeah, it's not easy, right? Period. Let's just say it's not easy. I could not do this without the full support of my husband. My husband is a physician. He's a biotech executive. So there are days where I'm like, you got to go pick up your kids because I got to do this. Like today, I'm like, I have a podcast. You got to go pick up the kids. I need help packing the dolls, like packing up the boxes, right? And he is just fully on board, right? Like it's not like this is your side gig. This is like he is a full partner in Jilly Bing. My mom, I talk a lot about her. We just got in this Chinese newspaper, and she was so proud, but unwilling to admit it.
Yeah.
But we literally moved her out from New York
Oh my
to
goodness.
come help me watch the two kids, right? Um, right, like who's going to pick up your kid on, whatever, right? Like Friday night, you have something to go to, but without my family fully supporting this business, it would not happen. So that I think that is one of the things that I do have as my sort of, um, the way I'm making it work. And the other thing is, it's sort of an advice that I remember hearing this from the CEO, Andrea Jung of Avon, and she was always a role model growing up. And when I was at business school, we had the opportunity to hear her speak, right? And I think that still, it's been over 10 years, but I think this piece of advice still rings true for me, right? Because there is no day where I'm a perfect mom, a perfect, daughter, a perfect whatever, startup leader. But I just kind of sort of lean in on different days to different things, right? Like there are days where I'm like, I'm going to turn off Jilly Bing and I'm just going to be here because my daughter wants to go to this dance class with this awful music, but I'm just gonna be there, right? And then there are days like, with the launch event, with the packing of the dolls, where I just couldn't be there. I couldn't pick them up. Like I would put them to bed. So it's just sort of shifting around
Yeah.
rather than trying to be perfect in any given day. But it's still not easy. I can give that advice, but it's still not easy.
Absolutely. And I was just talking to a friend yesterday. He's a dad, and he's like, you seem to have it all figured out with your husband. And I was like, we just embrace the chaos and
Yeah.
accept it. And I think that mind shift is really helpful because, yeah, no one is perfect. It really, really is hard. It continues to be hard. So
Yeah.
you're doing an amazing job.
We all are trying to do our best.
Yeah. So tell us all the fun details. Where can people learn more about Jilly Bing's story and purchase the doll and become part of this world?
Yeah, we invite everyone to come, be a part of the community. So on social, we are at Hello Jilly Bing, and our dolls are available for sale right now on our website. That's jillybing.com, JILLYBING. And for folks who don't know, Jilly is short for my daughter's name, Jillian, and Bing is begun, cookie. So it's one of her first words. So Jilly Bing. My children, I think they've heard me in enough, conversations that they'll go around and advertise, but they flip it.
Yeah.
They'll be like, Jilly Bing, American Asian doll.
That's so cute.
But there are little brand promoters.
Exactly. And I was like, nowadays you can just have Jillian go and play with the doll on YouTube and do her own little play. And that's a hit with kids. I would, my kids are quite a bit older than yours. And, but I used to like overhear what they were watching. I'm like, are they seriously just like playing with the Elsa doll, like on screen, and you guys are watching them do this little like, bit, and that's a thing still. So I think that you'll be fine in terms of them being brand promoters for quite some time.
Yeah, we'll see. Right now they're helping with the packing. We've got the whole family. The little ones can kind of put the dolls in the box. So when we ship it out to customers, they have a little love from both my daughter and my son.
Well, let us know if you need additional hands. We would be glad to help.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Elenor, and we will talk very soon.
Thanks, Stephanie. It's great to meet you here.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to support us for free by subscribing to our mailing list at colorsuccesspodcast.com. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. As Rob Heaps from Partner Track said, success is contagious, so come catch it.